Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time of the day it is that you're listening to this. My name is Yvette Wanzu, and welcome back to the Walking with Wanzu podcast. How have you been? How has Christmas been? Life has been kind to you? You're doing good? Okay, that's good to hear. And if you're not, I'm sending you lots of hugs and love and good vibes. So today I'm here and I'm not here alone. I have my very first guest on my podcast, and I'm really excited. I don't even want to water things down by introducing her. I want her to introduce herself. So karibu sana. Welcome.
Thank you. Hey, listeners, and thank you for welcoming me in this space. My name is Erika Kimunto. Came to Nairobi right smack dab in the middle of summer bunny season, and Nairobi is Nairobiing, but I'm so excited to get into our topics today.
Mm. Karibu, karibu, karibu. I mean, it's not every day. It's not every day that you see me bringing people on here, guys. So when you see me bringing a guest, just know that it's about to get juicy and interesting, and you're going to not only be entertained, but you're going to learn so much from what we want to talk about. Now, today we want to talk about something. We want to keep it light. We want to keep it jolly. So we want to talk about dating in our 20s versus in our 30s. Now, some of us are joining the third floor next year, and we could use all the help and insights that we can get. But also, we've just been here out here doing the most in our 20s, clowning, breaking hearts, having our hearts broken every week. But here we are. So we're really excited to be able to share some of our experiences with you, and we hope you get to learn something from what it is that we have to share. Feel free to share and comment down below on some of the experiences that you have had dating in your 20s, your 30s, and even in your teens. Because I know some of you have juicy stories about what you've been up to in your teens. So karibu and welcome.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So I'm not going to hog the spotlight because all of you know I'll be coming here telling you juicy stories about things that have happened and that have been happening. So I want to give Erika some of the time to be able to tell us what it's been like dating. Feel free to share with us when it was that you started,
Of course.
how it's been like in your 20s, and even how it's like now.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. So where do I start? I guess maybe just provide a little context. So you
Mm-hmm.
said you're approaching the third floor. I
Yes.
want to say I literally just got to mid third floor.
Well.
I'm not I'm not going to say what age it is,
Mm-mm.
but you all can kind of guess and from my experience, but yeah, I kind of was actually a late bloomer to dating,
Ah.
right? I was your parents' best dream. I stayed on books until I finished undergrad. And then,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's when I actually started dating.
Okay.
And where, dating in your 20s and then having your first, your first actual boyfriend, you just become kind of clingy in some areas,
Ah, bus.
ignoring red flags, right? Whereas kind
Yeah.
of now I know, right, when to
Mm-hmm.
walk away.
Mm-hmm.
Or even in your 20s, right? Even let's say, sometimes, the sex might be too good, so you're just
Yeah, so you're
confused
hooked.
and
Uh-huh.
then you're just overlooking things, but sometimes the fights are so intense.
Yeah.
Yani, you might even be doing silly things like traveling from Westlands to Ruaka to profess
God.
to profess your love through a window, right? And the man is not even
Hmm?
opening for you. It's like some of those crazy things we do. And then remember, you in your 20s, you don't even listen to the advice,
You
right?
do, and you're busy telling people out here, you don't know us. There's a way we understand each other.
Exactly. Huh? Meanwhile, you're being made a fool of,
That's
right?
true.
The
That's true.
whole time.
Yeah.
So yeah, because I think I have one such example.
Mm-hmm.
I had a Ghanaian boyfriend in my 20s. Where when things were good, things were good.
Yeah.
When things weren't good, they weren't so good because he was a hothead, and then me, I was just starting work, and then I would be ignoring what our arguments were about,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, I had a certain type of job. He was still trying to make himself.
Okay.
Ladies, always pay attention to how a guy responds, even in your 20s, if your like income is not matched up, right? Because that's the age you're hustling. Maybe you're
Yeah.
from campus, maybe you're trying
Mm-hmm.
to start your business. So you might be even a bit more settled. ignoring. I used to ignore the snarky comments and things like that. And I think one day he had a special catering event
Mm-hmm.
because he was trying to do catering and I was there supporting. But
Isn't that what we all do?
eh,
Out here,
supporting.
waking up to pray and fast so your man's business can be
Girl.
successful.
And caterers, you have to start early.
Yeah.
And Ghana, Accra is hot.
Mm?
Hot. Mombasa has nothing on it. So I'm just there supporting, just watching. I think maybe he wasn't confident in how the event went, but I just didn't care. I knew I
Yeah.
was there to support.
Mm-hmm.
Slowly, slowly after the event, he starts telling me, I see how you are looking at me all day. Huh? You just come here with your American dollars, doing this and doing that, looking down. And I'm just like, at that age, you can't tell that he's, what's the word, projecting?
Yes.
Because clearly that's
No, that's
projecting.
projecting. That's projecting because he's identified something that he doesn't like about himself, and then now apparently
Exactly.
now it's your problem.
Exactly, right? So he said that, and I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, I saw you talking to one of my associates on the side. I'm like, yeah, I was talking to her to kind of like understand how you guys got the clients.
Yeah.
That's it. But then why were you looking over at me? I don't know. I was just checking on you to see how you're doing at your own event.
Yeah.
Slowly, slowly. He just dropped me off in the middle of the street
What?
during that argument.
I've heard of these stories.
Hey,
Uh-uh.
Nagi.
What?
Yani, with my own paper bags, Sijui, what, just in the middle of the street. Luckily, Accra is safe, but
Yeah.
still,
But still, no.
it's just like because of that argument, because you're feeling insecure, you can't even just tell me that you feel insecure.
So what did he? Was he like get off the car? Get out of the car? What did he?
Girl, see, I was refusing to get from the car. I'm like, no, I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
He started putting my things outside the car, so I had to stand there. Girl, and then the crazy thing is, you're in your 20s, you're young, so he's left me there. I'm like, oh, he's left me. I'm gonna take a taxi to his mom's house.
Not his mom.
And his
Not
mom,
his mom. His mom was just chilling.
Where she didn't. First of all, the mom didn't even know English well at all. So me, I was just trying to play mind games. I'm like, okay, he wants to embarrass me. I'm gonna go to the mom and start to tell her everything. So he found out I was at the mom's place and blew up. And he's like, get out of there. If you don't leave, I'm gonna do XYZ. When you're in your 20s, that's the age, you might share certain things that you wouldn't share in your 30s.
Yeah.
So imagine.
So you gave him armor.
Yeah. So I was being threatened, with that. But I finally left. Next thing you know, this dude calls me the next day as if nothing happened. And my Ghanaian friend said, that's what's going to happen. Because I called her that night. Tomorrow he'll call you the next day like nothing happened.
Yeah.
And just be caring for you. And that's exactly what he did. And I was just like, but that was the red flag for me because it was so in my face where I just knew like, hey, it's my time to go.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So that's why nowadays, like if a flag is pink, it's light pink, dark pink, if it's not quite red, I just book it, right?
Yeah.
There'll always be something else. You don't have to hold on just because someone is a boyfriend or just some of the things are good.
No. How long had you guys been together?
Girl, imagine it was literally only 6 months. The craziest 6 months.
This is what I always say, and I tell that to my friends a lot, and they say, Ati, I'm being too serious. It doesn't need to hurt that soon. If it's so difficult that soon, then maybe you just need to walk away.
Exactly.
And I'm sure you didn't start Ati on the 6th month. You probably saw it month 1, month 2, and you're like, let's wait it out, let's see. That was crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
That was crazy.
But you just ignore the signs or like the little comments that are being said about how I work, this, that, and the other, but then maybe the actions are doing something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it gets so hard that soon outside of just getting to know each other conversations, you're right.
Yeah.
It's time to leave. So now in my 30s, and also another thing, and I'm not trying to look down on people.
Yeah.
In my 30s, I try to now, my best, to date people who are kind of on the same level. Because see, now in my 20s, like that guy, he never left Ghana. At that point, I had traveled. So he doesn't have the same world experience. So
An
kind of out.
exposure, sort of like yeah, you'd
Exactly.
say you
So
have.
his
Yeah.
universe is maybe just dealing with those
Yes.
Ghanaian girls.
Yeah.
Whereas me, I've been put in these different, situations and stuff like that. So, where that was a tough
Eh.
lesson to learn.
And then you go all the way to Ghana to receive that kind of rubbish.
Imagine almost settling down, already talking about,
What?
imagine in 6 months we're talking about, oh, how we're going to settle down, how, I'm going to get pregnant and this thing and the other. And I was like, thank God that thing happened because I saw
Yeah, because now you
myself
saw.
pregnant. And I'm like, if this guy can get so enraged in whatever insecurity and just leave me on the side of the street, how would it be like if I have a child? And that's when I was just like, you know what? Mm-mm.
It's not worth it.
But you know what the crazy thing is?
Mm-hmm.
He still messages me up to today. Like
Of course he
yesterday was my
does.
birthday. Oh, Erica, I miss you. I'm like, what? What is going on? But now he's at least trying to see if he can travel to Canada, travel to wherever. But
Yeah.
it's now almost 10 years later. I'm like,
No, you're definitely two different
I'm in a
people now,
different
and you're in a
headspace.
different headspace. I agree.
Exactly.
Wow, that's crazy. So I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So you said you were a late bloomer, right? When you started dating, would you say you had like a type? Were you, and also were you like a hopeless romantic? What kind of chick were you when you started dating,
Oh,
when you got into the dating space?
okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if some women can relate. So I was a late bloomer.
Mm.
My self-esteem wasn't the greatest,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Still, in my 20s, I was significantly overweight, did
Mhm.
not feel that desirable, right?
Yeah.
So any type of male attention I got, either maybe I'd be skeptical of it, or if they look decent enough, I'm like, okay, let
Yeah.
me pursue.
Mhm.
So technically, I didn't have a type, but me being about 5'8", 5'9" ish,
Mm.
most times it would be tall guys. But
Yeah.
honestly, it would just be the ones who give me attention. So where, yeah. Yeah, and now that I think about it, yeah, it was one of my first boyfriends. He came because of course I was back in
Yeah.
Stato, so he'd literally come to Kenya to study. I think he only lived in Nairobi briefly,
Yeah.
but of course his main headquarters was in Kisii. Girl, that is a whole other set of experiences and stuff like that. But at that age, because maybe you have low self-esteem and this guy who looks decent is giving you attention,
Yeah.
you don't have the confidence to articulate your wants and needs,
That's
right? You just
true. You
go
just take
along
what
for
you
the
can
ride
get. Yeah.
and stuff like that. Even though I was fed a story about, oh, I used to have a fiance, she's not my
Mm-hmm.
fiance anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that wasn't the truth.
These people are out here calling their girlfriends their sisters. Let me
Girl,
tell you,
whew,
everybody and their mother is their sister and their auntie.
what?
And I honestly, if there's someone what you people need to come up with better lies in 2023. I cannot be out here like, calling people's girlfriends their sister, their big sister. Please, are you related to the whole of Nairobi?
Imagine.
Ah.
Yeah. So in terms of me being a late bloomer and only being in
Mm.
those type of
Mm-hmm.
situations,
Mm-hmm.
I never really got the skill of good conflict resolution,
Yeah.
compromising as
Mm.
well, or just again like articulating my needs,
Yeah.
right, in my 20s. And then I was still very studious, like even with my job and stuff like that.
Ah,
So
yes.
either sometimes I get those cerebral guys or the ones who'd be so outwardly attracted to me clearly only wanted one thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'd always end up disappointed, right, in a way. But yeah, that late blooming, and even for me the biggest lesson in that is
Mm-hmm.
like as I have my nieces and
Mm-hmm.
eventually as I have my own children,
Yeah.
I'm honestly going to normalize them interacting with the other sex early on,
I think
right?
that's yeah, I think that's something that needs to be done really early.
Even if it's those like kiddie play dates of like, oh, I
Yes.
like John on the playground. Okay, let's talk to John's
Yeah.
mom. And
Yes.
then maybe you guys go to like some game park or something,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
go to the blow up castle,
Mm.
right? So that it's kind of normalizing that they know it's supervised so that you just don't get into situations where, it's too late or you're not paying attention,
Yeah.
to flags and stuff like that. So
And even
Hmm.
just having conversations about guys with your mom or someone who you'd
Oh
consider
yeah.
safe to be able to talk to. Because I think something that you're saying that I really identify with was I also had quite a bit of issues with my self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first guy who ever gave me that kind of attention, I was more than welcome to have it. Whether it was half, three quarter,
Exactly.
whether it was leftover kind of attention. I always used to think, how lucky am I to have this guy?
I
So I
know.
should just get it together.
Exactly.
And that's
Exactly.
not something you need to be thinking about in your even early 20s. Get it together for
Exactly.
who? You know?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think even just having, and even in your own small little sphere of influence, whether it's with your little cousins or your daughter's friends or little sisters, just being able to be that safe space for them to be able to talk to about some of the things that they're going through and without judging, because even you were young, you were once there. You know what it's
Hmm.
like when you can't see beyond, when you like someone and you just feel like your advice is not really advising me. I know what I want, and maybe you
Exactly.
don't.
You don't. You just like the idea of the person. And
Yes.
when you're at that young age, let's be real, women, we're already fast forwarding our thoughts to like the wedding,
Because
the
it's like
picket
some of us.
fence, how you're going to look
Yeah.
in a certain car with the dude
Mm,
because he's giving you this attention. So you start to create this kind of parallel narrative in your head
yeah.
that is actually kind of combating the reality that you're actually
Yes.
facing.
Yes.
Oh, he's not, texting me consistently. Oh, he must be so busy with his career. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
no. Now that I'm
Mm-mm.
older and I'm busy, I'm like, people make time for things they want to make
I
time
agree.
for.
I agree. And people make time for things they care about. I mean, you're making time for your job. You're making time for family. You're making time for going out with who and doing what. So clearly, if you felt like I was that important, you'd make time for me. And I always feel like it's the little things. It's the small text in the morning. It's the when are you free this week? Perhaps we can do something. I'm
Yeah.
not asking you to be on my case all the time, because in that event, then anyway, I would feel suffocated. But it's the small efforts that show.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also when you're in your 20s, sometimes you really shy away from saying what you want because you think if he goes, then perhaps I won't find another.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I really wish that as women, we were open to just articulating what it is that we want and how we feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now I've come to the okay, yeah, I consider myself a feminist, and
Yes.
those of you listening, I've put up air quotes, but I also believe because women have uteruses, there's certain things that we just shouldn't entertain with men, or certain things just should be provided for,
Mm-hmm.
right? I feel all of us can find those type of situations and,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. So that's why, yeah, just making sure for certain things, maybe going after caliber guys, or let's say you do like the rough types. Because
Yes.
honestly, I had a conversation with one of my friends the other day, and she was like, me, I've just resolved to knowing that I just like ghetto dudes, right? Because clearly
Yeah.
she's not looking for anything long term. She's looking
Mm.
for a certain experience, but it's like, is it just because there's no available men on the market, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe now we've just kind of shrunk,
Mm-hmm.
what we need men for
Mm.
in our lives?
Because a lot of women are now becoming the men that they want to marry.
Eh?
It's like, oh, then perhaps I should just do it for myself. Or perhaps I could just be that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, of course, we support independence. This is a whole different day and age to
Mm-hmm.
where, we need to define marriage differently, right?
Yeah.
A lot of us are seeing our friends not last in their marriages.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
maybe now for our generation, the thing just might be okay, maybe we come, we stay, we learn each other. If we have a child, great, but that doesn't mean we need to be together forever.
I
Those
agree.
like
Yeah.
80-year marriages where people just went through hell and
And
high
we're so
water the whole
unhappy and
where,
just busy here.
and then you start finding out at the funeral how really
You
grandpa
have
was like this, and you're like, what?
what? I know, right?
Yeah, and people enduring.
Yeah.
Well, but yeah, girl, just coming into my 30s and just reconciling, like, I do want a little bit of soft life for myself.
Mm.
Yeah, I can take care of myself, but it's good to, let someone else
Do.
also take care of you.
Yeah.
But then you might be dating a dude who's just a smooth operator, right?
And
And you
don't
have to
they
start
all love that?
what?
Don't they love the women who know how to take care of themselves and can do everything for themselves?
Exactly.
Yeah, but where do you? Because I've found myself going to both extremes where I really want to show you that I can take care of myself and do everything for myself. But at the same time, I'm also trying to strike a balance for I want to let you take care of me to some extent as well. Because let's face it, women, we all want to be independent and do things for ourselves. It also feels good to be taken care of to some extent, right?
It does. And like, I don't know if it was just during the pandemic or you've seen like this movement towards either divine femininity, tapping
Mm.
into your inner feminine, or what's the other
Yeah.
one? Feminine, not feminist. And I was like, okay, so now with your movement, you're saying like in order to be feminine or exude femininity,
Mhm.
you don't have to be feminist. To me, it's like mm, turning yourself into one of those pick me girls and centering around the
Mm.
dude. So it's just, so I feel like, again, if we go back to the original question, I feel like it's the tricky balance of one, I guess, having this aura of femininity where the guy feels like, okay, this balances my masculine,
Yeah.
but also not looking helpless.
The damsel in distress kind of, yeah, that one is also not cute.
Exactly.
I mean, you're not trying to transition from your father's house into going to find another father who's your mate. The only difference is now you two get together like that.
Right.
There has to be, I think you need to hold your own.
Mhm.
And then there's also a level of respect that comes with it. And that's why I like it when people tell me your 30s are like your 20s, but now with more money. I mean, depending on how you work and go about it.
Exactly.
Because it's like you're more clear about what you want and what your needs are, because by that point you can also hold your weight to some extent. So you don't need him for anything really, it's just the companionship aspects. Yeah.
Exactly. Or maybe even figuring out that you guys have the same type of career goals, or like
Yes.
just very, very focused on, building a legacy, right?
Mm.
Because I find people are now talking about what really is the true purpose of marriage. Like, okay, yeah, love is this social construct where
Yeah.
society tells us,
Mm.
what love is by either what we see in the movies or what we see with those around us.
Yeah.
But when you actually look at this institution of marriage, and
Mhm.
I'm not trying to sound too empirical or academic here,
Mhm.
like that whole Christian concept of marriage was just for like family security.
Yeah.
Even
No, it
like the
makes sense.
alliances with the
Mm.
royal family. So I'm like, why are we trying to prescribe all these things into marriage when maybe it really should be focused on one or two things,
Yeah.
right? Children,
Mhm.
or building a legacy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Improving a financial situation.
Yeah.
So like that's where, honestly, that's where I am. I'm like, if I
Mm.
ever get married, those are the two things to consider. Yeah, okay, love will be great, but I feel as women we can learn to love anyone.
That is so true.
Where?
That is, I mean,
And then
you can.
you're looking at his picture 8 months later, like, what was I thinking?
What was I high on? Please, this thing I was drinking. Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. And I think as even with time, because I just believe that experiences and lessons and how you view things change with time.
Mm-hmm.
I think even for, and I'm speaking for all the hopeless romantics in the room, tupatane pale nyuma ya 10 tukimaliza hii episode. I think over time you come and learn.
What?
They know me. They don't. Tutapatana hapo nyuma ya 10 tupike kachai. I think you learn that it's just there's so much around this story for love, because it's
Mm-hmm.
cute. It's cute when you're in love and you're doing great things together and you're planning a future together, and then life happens. Life begins to happen because you're not
Mm-hmm.
even when you're dating, you're not in the honeymoon phase forever. So now career comes into play, money, differences of opinion, family.
Mm-hmm.
There's all that. So there's so much more that makes a union than just nakupenda unanipenda. And then it's not, there's so much more to it. And as you get older, then you start to learn what works for you and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
You start learning, and this thing is so important. And I feel like there are even 50-year-olds walking out here who don't know how to still do this, learning to walk away from something that doesn't serve you. This thing you're holding on to relationships with your hands and your legs. You're out here looking like daddy. What is that spider called? Daddy long legs.
Legs.
Holding on, you don't want to let go. If something doesn't serve you, it doesn't mean that you didn't care about it or you don't value it. But sometimes the differences are better to walk away from than holding on to something and being unhappy for the rest of your life. So just learning to pick and choose what doesn't serve you and what does. And as you look at the bigger picture, as you pick a partner or whoever it is that you would hopefully want to spend the rest of your life together, you consider many other factors apart from the fact that I just love you and you love me. Because there's more to life than that. Yeah, and getting clear on what your boundaries are, what your non-negotiables are. What's that one thing that if someone
Mm-hmm.
does, then you're out. Yeah, and stuff like that. But I think I would say for the 19-year-olds and those in their 20s and even those in their 30s and just anyone basically who's trying to figure out the dating game, I don't think there's a pro at it. You just, as you grow, you learn and you get better at knowing what works for you and what doesn't. And even because most of us are only women here speaking, and we can only speak from our own perspective, we don't have to be here being quoted that we're busy bashing men
What?
and saying, because there are women out here doing crazy things. And we'll come back with another episode of how the way we have been injured, we've also been injuring people's sons and putting plus on people's hands.
Exactly. What?
Yeah, but I think it's very important to pick your lessons as you go. Please don't be that friend in your friendship circle who's always getting e-pills, who's always nursing heartache, who's always in dilemmas. I mean, surely all these years of living, you must have learned something and you want to walk away trying to be a better version of yourself. So even as we come to the end of the year, today is the 27th, I hope you've taken your fair share of stock taking and we're not walking into 2023 clowning the way we have been out here clowning.
What? Yeah,
It's been a lot.
2022 was a circus, but just one, parting shot. Like, if you
Yes.
know you're a hopeless romantic, like, I don't know if you've ever read like love languages, right? Because I think there's like an aspect of romance that really resonates with us. Like, for me, yeah, I get caught up in the movies, but for me, it's just quality time and acts of service, right? That's how I feel special. That's how I feel I'm getting the attention.
Yes.
That's how I, perceive love to be
Yeah.
and see it as romantic. So just kind of like break down what you're truly looking for in that hopeless romantic situation. I know it's just not the flowers.
Yeah.
I know it's just not remembering the anniversary dates and stuff like that. So
Yes.
just think about that, and then as you move forward, finding someone who can at least meet that, right? So yeah.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your shorts and for sharing your story about this your Ghanaian man. I'm sure there are a million other things that we could talk about on here. And if you wanted to unpack all our stories, we'd be here the whole day, guys.
Yes.
But I promise she will be back on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on
I
here
will be.
and for sharing some of the experiences that you've had. I've learned a lot from listening from you. And I hope that as we go into the new year, we won't be out here clowning the same way that we were. And if you're going to clown, please clown differently. So you carry those lessons from 2023 to 2024.
Or clown with an end goal in mind. Maybe that end goal is soft life.
A pass.
Or something.
Yeah.
At least making sure he's getting you handbags or something. So yeah, you might be looking foolish in the streets and doing whatever, but you have your end goal in mind.
Yes.
But oh my gosh, thank you to the listeners so much. I had so much fun this episode. Thank you, Yvette. We might have to come back and do like anonymous stories
Most
so that
definitely.
some of us can preserve our brand.
What? It's been crazy.
I'm telling you. Dudes will have you out here traveling to Thika Road, and you've never been to Thika Road.
Oh my God. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening. Do feel free to share some of your clowning stories and any of the comments that you have. Follow me on Instagram at Yvette Wanzu. Send me a Gmail on tewanzu@gmail.com, an email, and tell me what it is that you've learned from this episode and some of the stories that you have. I look forward to linking up with you and you joining me next time on the next episode. Thank you. I wish you love and light, and I will see you on the next one. Bye bye.